Thank you. This is Jim Stockstill bringing you another series of teachings from the program entitled The Handwriting on the Wall. This is brought to you by Jim Stockstill Masonry, supplying all your masonry needs: block, brick, rock, stone, patios, walkways, courtyards, whatever your masonry needs. Quality work at an affordable price. Today we want to continue with Benghazi because Benghazi keeps getting distracted. It keeps getting put off. It's been put off this time by the IRS. The IRS, as you know, has been tampering with the news media, the conservative news media, and conservative groups. Conservative meaning mostly values, people that have values, as opposed to those who do not have values. I told you before that the end times started when Israel became a nation in 1948. According to a prophecy in Ezekiel about 1600 years old, according to that prophecy, the nation of Israel will be dispersed throughout all the nations of the world. The reason I hesitated, I was hoping I had my lighting right. But anyhow, all the nations of the world, this was like 1600-year-old prophecy, and the nation of Israel was dispersed. And God said in the last days, for His name's sake, He would bring them back from wherever they'd been scattered. He would establish them, and they'd never be moved again. So they've been the only nation to ever been dissolved completely and then brought back. And we see that Israel only has good in them, mostly. I mean, they're people, but I mean, they produce, they contribute more than any other group to this world, and yet they're persecuted so much. Why? Because Satan is the god of this world, and he hates the people who have been chosen by God, and that is the Jewish people. They have been chosen. They are the chosen people. We are grafted in. Remember that the first church was the Jewish church, not the Gentiles. We are grafted in, so we just slide in by the hair on our teeth or whatever, by the hair on our chinny chin or whatever. The Bible says that the last days will have perilous times, and I think we can see that right now. Only this week we've had perilous times. We had a person in London, two guys that attacked this army guy with a meat cleaver and a knife, cut his head off and his hands off, as is commanded for them to do according to the Quran. It's written in the Quran to do that to unbelievers and those who make bad statements and infidel statements against Muhammad. So the bystanders couldn't help. I mean, they were great, big, strong boys, trained. I mean, just in their prime and in their youth with knives. The British people have no guns. England took their guns a long time ago. So say somebody walking with a concealed weapon, they could have stopped this boy from being killed, young man from being killed. And this is what they want to do to us too. It's a UN agenda. The UN agenda is for their constitution to supersede the United States Constitution. That's what the UN is planning to do. To usurp the sovereignty of each individual nation. The UN wants to be the all-encompassing power in the world to bring forth peace and prosperity to the world. And it's a non-religious organization. They don't know God, except the God of this world, who is Satan. But none of them are Christians, and the UN members want to have a new world order. And it's going to come from the United Nations. And according to Kissinger, he thinks Obama should be the first head of this new world order. And this is, just Google it. Henry Kissinger said that in 1990 something. But I'll get to that next week. Man, it's the purpose of this program to get to the bottom of what's going on, to get to the real truth, to discover the handwriting on the wall. You guys that listen to me want to know the truth, and you can interpret the handwriting on the wall. We're in perilous times. We just look at the news every night. That shows you in perilous time. Now, I want to prove conclusively that the only person that could have given the stand down order was the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama. He's the only one that could have given the stand down order in Benghazi. The information that I first give to you is from a Navy SEAL, a captain, and he led an attachment in Lebanon. And according to the officer, what this all boils down to is cross-border authority. I'm going to try to make it simple. I mean, you know, the military are used to these terms. In other words, you cannot cross another country's border without permission from the President of the United States to engage in any kind of military act. President Obama gave the cross-border authority when we went in to get bin Laden in Pakistan. He gave it. All right? But the only person that can give that is the President of the United States. Now here's the scenario to a degree. The person on the ground, which was Greg Hicks, who's already testified about Benghazi, was second in authority in Benghazi. He calls the president. He says, we've got an attack on our embassy. He just talked to Stevens, and Stevens says we're under attack. Then the phone line went dead. He calls the president, the Secretary of State. He makes all these calls. They know that the embassy is under attack. Once the order is given for the president to either to say stand down or to cross the border, there's backups. There's all kinds of backups provided in the military. And it's official record of the message. And the reason they do that is because no admiral or no general would want to cross over the border without records of it and have the president later say he didn't give the record. So there is. The alarm is sounded. The president is contacted. The president gives the order to either stand down or to cross the border. Official records go out that if he says cross the border, official records go out. If he doesn't say cross the border, no records go out, right? We can be sure that the cross the border authority was never given, because if it had been granted and the orders were handed down for us to cross the border, there would be irrefutable records existing in at least a dozen military headquarters in the world. Now, General Petraeus has blown the whistle indirectly. Remember, General Petraeus was head of the CIA, and the only person ahead of him are those in Washington, mainly President Obama. And remember, the minute this thing came up, then the main news media got us all off on his extramarital love affair, you know, and knew everything about that and got us off of Benghazi. We have to know the truth, and the truth will set us free. And he who the Son sets free is free indeed. So if we just got to know the truth. Our government has been doing bad things off and on for a long time, but this is the worst onslaught to the American people, on the American people, that we have ever seen. Remember that Petraeus had an extramarital affair, then Hillary Clinton fell down and hurt her head. So all this distraction right there when they're supposed to be testifying what happened in Benghazi. Now we're having testimonies in Benghazi, and we have the IRS situation coming up. And then we have the tornadoes which wipe out Oklahoma, and all the news media goes to that, even the good news media. Well, Like I said, the only national security team at the White House that outranks the CIA is the President Obama himself. There were more than 100 gun-ho Marines ready to storm in and help in Benghazi, but no cross-the-border authority was given. According to Mike Huckabee, and he's a former governor, and he got his own show on Fox News, he said that Lieutenant General William Boykin, he was a former commander of Delta Force, and he quotes Mr. Boykin, General Boykin, as saying that they could have had planes there within 2 to 3 hours and boots on the ground within 5 to 6 hours. And the whole thing took 7.5 hours before the Navy SEALs were eventually killed. And that's a great story in itself. Panetta, who was one of the spokesmen for President Obama, he said that the military doesn't do risky things. The general just slapped himself in the forehead and said, that's what the military do. We do risky things. We've got the gun-ho Marines. They love to fight. We would have gone in and taken them out. Another general, Lieutenant G. McInerney, he served at the highest level of the Air Force, especially in Europe. He said this is going to make Watergate look like kindergarten. The general also insists that the stand-down order can only come from one source, the president himself. The general went on to say that we have never abandoned people before in the history of the military of the United States. So, the stand-down order could only come from one place, and that's been said by General Petraeus, General McInerney, and General William Boykin. Mike Huckabee has said that. It's apparent that the Obama administration is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood as they take over the Middle East. You see, each dictator in the Middle East has been falling, and there's been a bunch of them fall. Gaddafi, Mubarak has fallen, and then in Tunisia has fallen. Afghanistan, Pakistan, they're falling, and the Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood, and their affiliates and all their sources are taking over these countries. These are the very people that are blowing us up in Boston. Yet, we don't call them terrorist attacks. This is pretty big, what I'm telling you, and it's not a conspiracy theory, it's on the news daily. I'm just deciphering it. I know when I worked and was supporting a family, and well, I still work, but when I was supporting a family, raising kids and everything, all I could do is just put bread on the table. I'm telling you this for you to get your own opinion and know exactly what's going on. We've seen that the Obama administration is supplying weapons to the rebels. And these are the rebels who are attacking our streets, blowing the legs and arms off of our people in Boston, massacring people in Fort Hood. Okay, now, here's what a newspaper, Jewish newspaper, has to say. After the fall of Gaddafi, who was a dictator in Libya, and Libya, Benghazi is in Libya, that's where our embassy is, just get it all straight. After he fell, then there was a focus on trying to take the weapons back that we had given to the army that was attacking, that was fighting in Libya. The rebel army that was fighting. As we got reported on our newspaper and our news media, that these people who were fighting to establish democracy. In Egypt, they were fighting to establish democracy. This is far from the truth. They were fighting to establish Islam. And I've told you that before. Islam is the biggest threat to the world right now. And all you got to do is turn on the TV and you'll see where they've blown up somebody or they cut somebody's head off or they've done something. And it's increasing. It's increasing daily. Remember that Benghazi attack was on the anniversary of 9/11. It was a planned attack, 9/11. Just remember that. So, what the Israeli newspaper says that Stevens was heavily involved in the State Department's effort to collect weapons from the Libyan rebels. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican from South Carolina, last March disclosed in an interview with Fox News that Stevens was in Benghazi to keep weapons, particularly they call them man pads. And what they do, they sit on the shoulders and they shoot down planes from the ground and from falling in. So Stevens was there trying to collect these back. And what had happened when we were helping the terrorists in Benghazi, we were supplying them with weaponry so they could take Gaddafi out. And we supplied them with all these man pads, all these weapons that shoot down planes. And now when we finished that, the fight moved into Syria. So we wanted to take these man pads back from these guys and give them to Syria. Now, these rebels, this Al-Qaeda group, didn't want to give them back. So this is probably one of the reasons they're not going to give them back, because they like these things. We've supplied a lot of weaponry there in the Mideast. We send fighters to Egypt. We're doing a lot of stupid things. We're fighting this war. Now, on the other hand, it's like it's always been. We got Russia, who supplies the other side. So it's a battle here. It's a battle here. Senator Lindsey Graham says we had to get these missiles, these these rocket shoulder launchers. We had to get them back from the rebels. Now Shapiro said in a talk February 2nd, 2012, he said it to a think tank. He said that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton committed to providing $40 million to assist Libya's efforts to secure and recover the United States weapons that he'd given them. And then he goes on to say, what else is there? Well, the Bible is full of examples of a very few people taking on the majority and winning. If America is going to survive the attack that's on our civil liberties, the attack that's on our people, the physical attack on the people in America, we have to be enlightened. We have to know that Islam is here on our grounds. We have to know that our president is Islamic. We have to know that their main thing is to conquer and be the supreme religion in the world. We have to know that it's Islam in the Mideast that is conquering all these nations. They're becoming fortified. They're becoming unified. They're becoming one. And it's billions of them that are taking over the Mideast. They want to come down on Israel and they want to wipe Israel off the map. It takes all of them to beat this little nation of Israel. But so right now, we went from Libya, we've gone to Syria now, and we're supporting the rebel fighters in Syria. Next, we'll go to Lebanon. After that, we've got the whole Mideast is Islamic, except for Israel. So, you've got the news, you've got the information, and we just remember that Jesus is Lord, and in the last days, the glory of the Lord has risen upon us. And we're going to walk through the waters and not be overflowed, and we're going to walk through the fire and not be burned. 1,000 going to fall at our left side and 10,000 at our right, but nothing's going to come nigh us. Until next time, this is Jim Stockstill saying, I want you to keep looking for the handwriting on the wall.